14-year-old Armin Kaleem stood at the iron gates of Crescent Wood School of Music, cello case slung across his back. The towering structure before him, wrapped in ivy and elegance, looked more like a concert hall than a school. Polished, stone steps led to grand doors that had welcomed generations of elite musicians, none of whom, he imagined, looked like him. He took a steady breath and walked forward, blending into a sea of students clad in tailored uniforms and carrying instruments worth more than his family's car. Laughter echoed around him, casual talk of summer masterclasses in Vienna and private recitals in Rome. Armin said nothing. He didn't belong to their world. Not yet. The cello case weighed heavier on his shoulder, not just in weight, but in memory. It had once belonged to his father, a self-taught musician who played in parks, subway stations, and quiet corners of the city. His music, though raw, had heart, and that's what he passed on to his son. Inside the main building, Armin approached. The front desk, a tall woman with stiff posture, barely glanced up. "You're the scholarship student?" she asked, her tone more statement than question. "Yes, ma'am. Your schedule's been sent to your email." "Orchestra placement is pending," she said, already turning away. "You're in Hall B for orientation." The marble-floored corridor was lined with portraits of famous alumni, composers, conductors, Grammy winners. Armin's sneakers squeaked awkwardly as he walked. Every corner of this place felt too clean, too sharp, too far from the neighborhood he came from. He stepped into Hall B, where rows of chairs filled quickly with students chatting in tight-knit groups. He found an empty seat near the back. Nobody looked his way. Not out of malice, just indifference. "Hey," said a voice beside him. A girl dropped into the chair next to his. She had pale skin, soft hazel eyes, and a friendly smile. "I'm Claire," she said. "You look like you'd rather be invisible." He gave a half smile. "I'm new." "Same. Sort of. My brother was here before me, so everyone expects I'll be some prodigy." She nudged him. "What do you play?" "Cello," he replied. "Ooh, that's serious. I play the harp." Before he could ask more, the bell rang, and a voice over the intercom directed them to their first classes. His first was Advanced Ensemble Theory with Ms. Trevors. She entered with the precision of a conductor. Tall, statuesque, dressed in navy, her hair twisted into a bun that didn't move even as she did. "This course is not for the faint-hearted," she declared. "If you're here to simply coast through, leave now." She walked the aisle, pausing beside Armin. "Name?" she asked crisply. "Armin Kaleem." Her brow lifted slightly. "Your prior training?" "I learned from my father," he answered, calmly. "At home." "No formal conservatory?" He shook his head. She moved on, but her pause lingered in the air. The unspoken judgment was louder than any insult. Throughout the class, Armin kept his eyes on his notes. The terms weren't new to him, but the delivery, brisk and elite, made it harder to focus. Around him, others nodded like they'd been hearing this language since birth. After the bell, he found a bench in the courtyard. The midday sun poured through tall trees, and nearby students exchanged jokes over lattes. Armin unwrapped his lunch and found a small folded note in the bag. "Play with your heart. That's where your power lives." "Mom." He smiled briefly. The ink was smudged, the writing uneven, but it felt like a warm hand on his shoulder. As he took a bite, a group of students passed by. One of them laughed and said just loud enough, "Didn't know this place handed out scholarships for street performers." He didn't react. He just closed his lunch and stood. On his way to his next class, he passed the grand music hall. Through the glass, he glimpsed the shimmering stage, rows of chairs, and a gleaming piano resting under spotlights. Cello stands lined one side, arranged with perfection. He reached for the door, but a senior blocked his way. "This room's for soloists and selected ensembles," the boy said with a smirk. "I wasn't going to play," Armin replied. Then, "You have no reason to be here." The door shut behind him with a soft click. Armin turned away. That evening, back in their small apartment, he leaned his cello against the wall. He sat beside it, staring at the faded sticker on the case. One, his father had placed there after a subway show. Armand ran a hand across the strings. He could still hear his father's voice. Play for the ones who've never been heard. Maybe the stage wasn't open to him yet, but music didn't need permission. Not where he came from. The second day began with a soft drizzle and heavy skies, a mirror to Armand's thoughts as he stepped through Crescentwood's stone archways. The building looked less like a school and more like a place frozen in time. Inside, the air carried the scent of polished wood and centuries-old expectation. His morning classes moved quickly. Music theory, too, was dense but manageable. He preferred notes and measures to casual stares and whispered jokes. During oral skills class, the teacher asked students to identify intervals by ear. Armand answered each one correctly. Still, the instructor never praised him, not like he did when a boy named Felix answered just one right. At lunch, Armand found the same bench under the tree. He ate alone, his cello case resting beside him like a silent companion. The conversations nearby floated by, full of terms like Juilliard alumni, Steinway grants, and masterclass with Dr. Loeffler. It was another language, spoken fluently by students who had grown up within it. Claire spotted him and walked over holding 2 drinks. "I guessed you might like iced chai," she said, placing one next to him. He smiled. "Thanks." "Rough morning?" Armand nodded. "Feels like I'm playing a solo in the wrong key." Claire grinned. "That's kind of poetic." They sat, in silence for a while, sipping their drinks. The rain had faded, leaving small puddles that reflected patches of sky. Claire leaned back. "You know, I saw you practicing the other day, in that little room by the boiler." His expression shifted. "You heard me?" "I didn't mean to spy," she said quickly. "But you were incredible." Armand looked down. "They won't let me audition for anything. I asked about the winter recital. Ms. Trevor said I don't have the required experience." Claire frowned. "That's ridiculous." She didn't even ask what I was planning to play. "What were you going to play?" she asked softly. "My father's piece," he said. He called it Rain Over Marble. He wrote it while watching raindrops fall on cathedral stairs. "Can I hear it sometime?" Armand hesitated, then gave a small nod. That afternoon, he skipped the crowded practice rooms and made his way to the basement. Past the maintenance hallway and janitor's closet was a forgotten storage room, dim, dusty, but quiet. He'd found it on his first day and made it his own. Inside, he unpacked the cello and tuned it by ear. The strings responded like old friends, their hum low and full of memory. He began to play. The opening note lingered, rich and slow. The melody started, soft like footsteps on wet stone, then grew into sweeping arpeggios that echoed through the walls. His bow moved with precision and feeling, each note shaped by emotion rather than technique. When he finished, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with presence. Someone clapped gently from the doorway. Startled, Armand turned. An older man in overalls leaned against the frame, arms crossed. His face was wrinkled from time, his eyes calm and observant. "I'm Mr. Brooks," he said. "Custodian. I've been mopping these halls since Bach was in diapers." Armand chuckled nervously. "Sorry, I didn't think anyone came down here. I don't usually, but I follow the sound when it's worth it." Armand looked down. "Thanks. You play with soul," Brooks added. "That's rarer than talent." The next day, Armand returned with a plan. He asked Claire to meet him in the storage room, harp in tow. She looked uncertain but curious. Together they began to rehearse. At first their timing clashed, her elegance brushing against his passion. But by the third run-through something clicked. Her light harmonies wrapped around his deep cello lines, creating something neither could achieve alone. Mr. Brooks found them again and offered something unexpected, an old microphone and a small digital recorder. "Found these in the tech closet, still work. You two should record that piece." They did. The sound was raw but powerful. Claire uploaded the clip anonymously to the school's internal platform under the title, "Cello Unknown." By the next morning, whispers filled the hallways. "Did you hear that new track? Sounds like something out of a film score. Who is Cello Unknown?" Even Ms. Trevors paused her class to comment. "Whoever submitted that piecing understands music beyond the page." Claire shot Armin a sideways smile. His ears turned red. Later, a bulletin update caught his eye. Winter recital. One final slot reopened. Anonymous auditions accepted. Clicked apply. This time he entered a name, not his own but the one that shaped him. Kaleem Sr. The school buzzed with speculation. Posters for the winter recital now had an added line in red ink, featuring a special mystery soloist. Students clustered in hallways, guessing names, analyzing styles, replaying Cello Unknown as if decoding a secret message. Arman walked through it all like a shadow, his real identity cloaked behind the name that meant everything to him, Kaleem Sr. The audition had been blind. A darkened room, a single spotlight, and a 7-minute performance recorded by Mr. Brooks' old mic. No introductions, no explanations, just music. It had been enough. And now, he was on the list. Not as a guest, not as a backup, as a featured soloist. Only Claire knew the truth. She beamed with pride but kept her promise of silence. "Let them hear you before they see you," she'd said. "Then they'll listen for real." They returned to the hidden room every afternoon. Armin played with growing confidence. Claire refined her harmonies, softening edges, strengthening transitions. Mr. Brooks became their silent supporter, always, bringing a spare light bulb or fixing an amp wire with a wink. One evening he arrived with a dusty old frame in his hands. "Thought you'd want this," he said, handing it to Armin. Inside was a black and white photo of a young man standing outside a city music hall, cello in hand, pride in his eyes. The caption read, Kaleem, 1984, Underground Symphony Showcase." Armin froze. "Where did you find this?" "Old archives. Figured it was your father." Recognized the name. His throat tightened. He nodded. That night, Armin sat in bed holding the frame. The eyes in the picture looked back at him with the same fire he felt every time he played. "This is your concert too," he thought. "They'll hear you through me." Rehearsals for the recital filled the school with tension. Instructors hovered, correcting posture, tempo, expression. Soloists were shuffled in and out of sound booths. Some carried the weight with grace. Others cracked under pressure. Arman remained absent from the official practice schedule. No one had connected him to the viral recording. Some students even joked, "Whoever it is probably isn't from this school." Claire just smiled to herself. 2. Days before the recital, Ms. Trevors announced the final lineup in her class. When she reached the bottom, she paused. "Closing performance will be by Kaleem Sr. We expect excellence." The room buzzed. "Who is that?" someone asked. "Sounds like a jazz name." Felix laughed. "Maybe it's a prank." Armin said nothing. He just lowered his eyes and made a silent promise. The night of the recital arrived. The auditorium glowed under soft lights. Velvet curtains swayed behind the stage. Parents, guests, and local musicians filled the seats, murmuring with anticipation. A row of faculty sat up front, including Ms. Trevors, arms folded tightly. Backstage, Armin tuned his cello slowly, fingers calm but steady. Claire squeezed his shoulder. "This is yours. Not because you fought for it, but because you earned it." He stepped out onto the stage, one careful step at a time. No spotlight, no name announcement, just silence. He positioned the cello, adjusted the end pin, and closed his eyes. Then he began. The opening notes were deep and warm, like a memory unfolding. The piece, Rain Over Marble, moved through sorrow and hope, grief and celebration. Armin's bow sang, wept, and whispered across the strings. It wasn't polished to perfection. It was honest. Every note was his father's voice. Every swell was a word unsaid. By the final measure, the room had changed. The air felt heavier, not from sound but meaning. He lifted the bow. Silence held for a moment, then rose into a standing ovation. Even Miss Travers clapped, though slowly. From the front row, a man in a charcoal blazer stood and made his way to the stage. "I'm Professor Langford," he said, smiling. "Director of the National Conservatory." That was not just a performance, and it was a conversation. Armin said nothing at first. Then, softly, "Thank you." Langford tilted his head. "Tell me, young man, what name should we remember you by?" He looked out over the audience and said proudly, "Armin Kaleem, son of Kaleem Sr.